Paulk Smart Station is finished. I'm Ron Paulk, and this is the Smart Wood Shop. If you want to get a set of detailed plans to build a smart wood shop for yourself, the brand new Paulk Smart Bench, the just released Paulk Smart Station, you can go to our store, download them instantaneously, 24/7, 365. Link in the description of this video. The Paulk Smart Station is my newest bench creation, coming right on the heels of the Paulk Smart Bench. This is the latest in the generation, the design of the Paulk Bench series. These have been thought through and redesigned from the ground up. The bones and the history of the previous benches are here, but these are 10 years of evolving and perfecting and improving. And I am very satisfied with the way they've turned out. New materials, new designs. There's so many features to these that I've really come to enjoy over the past few weeks and few months. I have the shop set up the way that I am using it currently. The spacing the way I want it, so I have my Paulk Smart Bench here, which I use for assembly and cross-cutting and breaking down plywood, and I actually use this bench the most. But this is my tool bench. This is a miter stand. It is a table saw outfeed. It is a router table support. The router tables are not part of it, but the Paulk Smart router table, which is part of this latest evolution or latest in the Paulk Smart design. And they're functioning not only as router tables, but as outfeed for my table saw. So everything is working together. The heights of everything, the layout of the holes, so much that I can do with these. The MFT table layout, the 20 millimeter holes, 96 millimeter spacing, industry standard since World War II. These holes are used for clamping. They're used for alignment. They're used for putting accessories on the benches. This is a complete wood shop. I can go in and remodel and build a house with these. The beauty of them though is that they're lightweight and portable. They're quick and easy to set up. As a one-man shop, I can go in and have my full shop set up on any job. If I can only have one bench, it'll be this one. It's because it's my tool bench, it's my miter stand, it does all the things. And I do have the ability, especially now with the router tables added on, to have more room for assembly, and I can do cross-cutting and things like that. But it is very rare that I only have the room for this. If I'm on a cabinet install, for example, this is all I'm going to set up because I can do everything I need to do. If I'm going to do hardwood installation, this is the only bench I'm going to set up. Most of the time, I'm going to go ahead and set up my Paulk workbench as well because the two of them work together so well. In this little space here, I've got everything set up. Our wood shop is right over there and I can easily get into it. And on a job, normally it would be just on the outside with the garage door open and I can come and go from that. But when I pack up at night and I close the Smart Wood Shop ramp door, the truck can back in and fits right beside the bench. So I can get everything in here and I still have all that space over there. And I'm working in just under 1,000 square feet with just about everything I own stored in here. So it doesn't take a lot of room. And the beauty is even though this is portable and I use it in the professional world of remodeling and building homes, even if I didn't do that and I just worked out of a small one-car garage or two-car garage or a little shop on the side of my house, this would still be perfect. I leave these set up here right now because of what I'm doing and what the demands of my job are. I'm working right here most of the time, so I leave these set up all the time and still get everything in here. But when it's time and I need the space, these break down and pack up. Everything will fit inside the bench. The sawhorses, the spreaders, the miter tracks, the miter tracks here, everything will fit inside. Not obviously the tools, they have locations in the Smart Wood Shop. And then these two benches are exactly the same size when they're packed up. They just don't take up that much room. They can fit in any pickup, any van, the smallest transportation out there that I see. These things will fit in. Part of the design was making them as small as possible, but still be totally functional as a much larger bench, hence the extensions and how that I'm doing things. Now, what you don't see here is that I also have miter tracks that are longer. One of the things that I do that's the most demanding for repetitive cuts, having my flip stops work for, is when I am installing doors. Typically when I'm building a house or doing a remodel, I'm installing multiple doors, 10 doors, 20 doors, even as many as 50 doors. And when I do that, I'm cutting door legs almost all the same length. And so I'm doing a repetitive cut and I want to set a stop. Well, in this day and age with 8-foot doors, that happens, that's a demand of somewhere between 8'4" and 8'6". So I have longer miter tracks for that application. Truth be told though, I only need that extra length probably somewhere around less than 20% of my work life. And so I decided that I was going to go with a short set and a long set rather than going with extensions. I started with extensions. In fact, they're over there in the corner. And I just didn't like how it worked out. And I really didn't like breaking the tape up because no matter how well you tie them together over time, if you don't put them quite together right, if there's some wear, you can start to get some inaccuracy on the extension. So I decided I wanted to separate them. And so the 8-footers that I'm going to build, and I'll make a video showing you how to do that, they're going to be identical to the short ones, and they're on the plan. They will not store in the bench because they're longer than the bench. But that's a sacrifice I was willing to make. I can store them in the Smart Wood Shop. I don't need to bring them out most of the time, but when I need them, they're there. What I found with my previous design, with sticking to just the length of the bench, I was having to, most of the time, put on one of the extensions because I found that I was out into this space a lot, that this was just not long enough for a lot of my work. So I decided on this length, but these are totally scalable. You may decide that all you need is just the shorter length and that's it. Or you may decide, you know, if this were 1 foot longer, it would still fit inside the bench, but you wouldn't need the long ones. So the way this whole plan is designed is that you can make just this set, or you can make just the big set, you can make them both. You can make a third shorter set, or scale these to exactly what you need. It's really modular, just like the Smart Wood Shop. Plans include these miter track support designs. You don't need these on the shorter one. If you do want a longer one, then you're gonna want to have a support. Plus, this gives you that material support across the bottom, which is so critical when you're running base molding or crown molding or chair rail, any of the 16-foot standard trims where you're going to want to have it between you and the saw. When you're doing that longer stuff, you're going to have your longer miter tracks and you're going to have your support that's going to hold that longer material. I've designed my Smart Station for the Capex, but I know that there's a lot of great mainstream saws out there from Bosch and from Milwaukee and from Makita and from DeWalt. And I've seen so many of you adapt the previous Total Stations to those other saws. So I have purchased a DeWalt cordless saw. I think it's as big as any of them are. So when I fit it to this at some point in the future, I'll show you, I'll make a video doing that to show you how to fit this to other saws. The Paulk Smart Station includes my own flip stops. I developed these a long time ago. I just didn't like anything that was available on the market. I wanted a big enough flip stop to be able to run my material into it. I wanted it to be very rigid so that when I push a material into it, I can push it in hard and it's not going to deflect. So I really like the accuracy and the durability I get with this. I have a spline designed that works in the T-track. This is a shop-made T-track. I show you how to do that in the build series. And the tape measure that I use from FastCap is both metric and standard. It's set below the surface. I solved the shortcut problem very easily with story poles. I make up 2 story poles. I cut one at 20 inches. I use 20 because it's easy math. If I need to cut a 2 1/4 inch piece, then I just set my flip stop up to 22 1/4, and then I put this against the stop, and then I can make the cuts over and over and get exactly that cut. I do the same thing for metric. I choose 400. Easy math. I don't make mistakes. This solves the issue of shortcuts, and I think it does it the most efficiently and the simplest. One of the other losses to having a flip stop or a stop that is longer so it reaches into the blade is now I lose all of that cutting distance, about 1 foot from the edge of the miter saw to the blade. Now 0 point would be out here, and so I would have to have my miter extensions an extra foot long to equal the cutting capacity of these shorter ones. So there's a lot of reasons that I've gone this route. I've been asked about this many times, and I've thought about it and designed and tested many different ways, and these have just stuck with me over all of the total stations. There's a lot about these benches that I'm not covering. I've got over 800 videos up. You see me using them, and you'll see so many more videos of me using these new benches that you can just see how I use them. But one of the features that continues to be very important to me and help me in my efficiency is the fact that there's space beneath the bench top. I keep the clamps, the tools, the glues, the measuring stuff, drills, routers, it keeps my bench top clear so I can work on my bench top. In fact, that's what drove me to designing the very first Paulk workbench. Was I need to get, I set up a piece of plywood on sawhorses on a job, and then it's just a collection. It's like a magnet. Everything ends up laying on there, and then when it was time to work, I have to move stuff around. That's the reason for the depth, the fact that these are 10 inches, is that I wanted this opening wide enough to fit a certain amount of tools, and I tried narrower ones. Obviously, if I could go even deeper, I could even get bigger tools in, but I found that my routers fit in there, big drills fit in there, most of the tools, and then when I get a big saw, like my track saw, then I've got a shelf underneath. When it's packed up, it's exactly the same size as the Paulk Smart Bench, stacked right on top of each other. You can see how efficient it is to have everything you need and move these things around with you. In fact, I have space in these that I can get a couple of the router tables in there as well. So I can really get this stuff all nested and have my entire wood shop. Once I get to the job in the trailer or in my truck, I could haul the entire thing with everything inside of it. I could put it on a hand truck and carry it in. So when the miter saw slides in, it drops in on these tabs here. These stick up a little higher than the dados that support them. That's one of the things I did. I eliminated a lot of clutter in here, simplified this, so now the miter saw is hanging rather than being held up with a box. I didn't want any bolt downs for my miter saw, so I had a shim that went in before that would just wedge it in place so it wouldn't tip when the saw was pushed back. What I've done to eliminate that is I created a cam. So once I slide the saw in and it drops in, it indexes it perfectly. It can only fit in one way every time. Then I just rotate this and it wedges down on that base. So you can see the baseboard that the saw is permanently mounted to will then slide in, and as soon as it gets to that dado underneath, it drops in. That is the only way the saw will fit in, so I don't have to worry, did I get it in the right spot? Rotate it until it wedges against that base, and now it won't lift. Because my new benches are designed with the extenders in mind, I've lowered the height of the bench. My finished working height is still 36 inches, industry standard. It works with almost all machinery. That's machinery height. So when I get out my saw stop and put it up next to this, the bare bench is going to be 18 millimeters too low. So I have the option at that point to, I'd have my router tables on anyway, but I've got my bench extenders that I can put on. Or worst case scenario, if I'm in a hurry and I don't want to set any of that up, sacrificial strips, which I always use because I don't cut my bench. The outfeed will be at the right height. And I just like the way that it's all working. You know, there's always compromise, a step back and 2 steps forward. And I learned that I wanted, you know, to always avoid like bolting something on. But I've added these 2 that have to be bolted on. But what they gained me was that extra length without having to have the extensions and the extension supports. And also it allowed me to cantilever off the front and effectively widen the bench by a couple of inches, because if it were set in there, not only would I be limited on how far out the stop could go, but I would be limited on the fact that the saw would have to be set in further, which would eat up more space on the back of my saw. So I really like how this modular system is coming together. Well, it's taken me 10 years and a lot of hours to get here, but I'm really happy with this. I hope a lot of you see this bench working in your woodworking career or in your hobby. If you like these videos, be sure to give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and remember to ring that bell. Thanks for dropping into the Smart Wood Shop. You stay safe and have a great day.